welcome to the webinar. It will start soon, but first, we see challenges in adopting AI into clinical workflows. That's what we are talking about. Sharing knowledge, networking, and building relationships. That's why we are here. We are Radency. We build digital products that people love. Transparency and continuous delivery. Product development, compliance, and agile delivery. We are good at it, and we love it. Welcome to our webinar. We are happy you are here. Ada Shahinyan. Kanjale Dilon Tanyachib and Andrew Harrison. Now we go to our hosts, Jose and Edward. Challenges for the webinar, it will start soon, webinar. But first we sing challenges in adopting AI.
Thank you everyone for coming. I hope you don't mind the AI band. I picked flamenco because it pronounces everyone's names right if I pick flamenco, including mine. And thank you very much for coming to our event today. Challenges in adopting AI into clinical workflows. And we've done actually a couple of events on AI before. On specifically, we've been looking at compliance issues. We're not going to be delving into that too much. We're going to be touching on it a bit at the end. And we've got recordings of the previous event. So if you want lots of content about compliance. And now I'm going to bring up, we're doing something a little bit different this time. My name is Jose Garcia. I'm with Radency. I'm an account executive. I host webinars. I do product discovery. And for this event, I am going to have a co-host. If we can bring on Edward. And Edward's delivery partner. Thank you very much for coming, Edward. And Edward is, I think, and I work with Edward. He's a person, if someone starts asking me questions about, yeah, go a bit above my pay grade in terms of delivering a software project. Bring Edward. So Edward's going to be helping us. Thank you, by the way, for coming, Edward. And Edward's going to be giving us some perspective on the technical side. So when we're talking about some of this technology, and he's launched a lot of software engineering projects in health tech, med tech, digital health. So we're going to be drawing on his experience. And I'm wondering if we could bring on our first speaker, Akanjali. And it was like, who's dialing in from London. Thank you for bringing the very colorful background.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you for coming. And I'm wondering, I wonder if you could spend about 1 or 2 minutes telling the audience what it is that you do.
Sure. Well, my name's Akanjali, and I have the unique opportunity to integrate years of clinical knowledge from having worked as a doctor across a number of different specialties within the NHS and within the private healthcare system here in the UK, and use and leverage all that experience to design bespoke software and implement that across HCA in the UK nationally. So it's a really interesting role that integrates using years of clinical knowledge and really looking at how we can design tech in an ever-changing, ever-evolving landscape. And so it's been a steep learning curve, but a really exciting industry to be part of.
And I'm wondering, was we met before, and I remember when we first met, and you've seen a lot of implementations of IT systems in healthcare, sometimes too many. They don't talk to each other very well, but we're not going to go into that too much. Or maybe we will. What do you see as the biggest challenges in adopting AI solutions into clinical workflows from your point
Yeah.
of view?
So first of all, great question. And I'm so pleased that people are asking this question because it's trying to look at AI from the other way around, not from the product up, but from the landscape first, and then looking at what that needs. And I think that I could spend hours talking to you about this, so I'll try and be succinct. There's four key areas for me. The first and most important to me is the heterogeneous IT infrastructure and the fragmented data that comes as a result of that. And that's huge. And I'm not sure if people working not patient facing necessarily have an appreciation for just how fragmented our IT systems are, especially here in the UK. The second key challenge is clinical validation and compliance with regulation for AI, which I know a number of our speakers will be hopefully able to speak to better than myself. So I shall leave that to them. The third is the difficulty in commercializing, and that's really key again here in the UK, where the NHS is one of the biggest players. And lastly, the culture. So there's a general resistance to change in certain arenas, and that I think that ticker is starting to change as this industry voice is becoming louder. But there's some work to be done there. So I'll take a deep dive into the first, and if we've got time, hopefully touch upon some of the others. But when we're talking about the heterogeneity of the IT infrastructure, really the issue is that it makes the AI integration, its interoperability really challenging. So the functionality and user experience of our present systems lags behind consumer technology that we take for granted. And that's where there's a bit of a mismatch. So I can very easily achieve very complex actions on my iPhone as a consumer. But when I want to order life-saving tests in a time-limited, resource-limited space, that is very challenging. And so there's a real mismatch there for clinicians. And I think that the industry has some work to do to address those effectively. The IT architecture across subdivisions or pockets is wildly varied. And I don't know, again, I've already mentioned how much of an appreciation there is for that. So IT systems do not necessarily, and more often than not, do not speak to one another within one ecosystem, let alone other ecosystems that may operate in the same postcode. So if I, as a GP, get sent a discharge letter from hospital, I need to manually transcribe those medications that a hospital has sent to me, with sifting through reams and reams of PDFs to try and figure out why this hazardous medication might have been started on a patient. That's just taken 25 minutes of my clinical time. And that's not good enough. And that's what clinicians are facing today. And I think that's why there's so much frustration in this area. The two key issues that essentially this heterogeneity of IT landscape presents is that the solutions that AI is offering currently don't necessarily target the issues at hand for clinicians. Some of them do, and so that I want to sort of appreciate that. But generally, the whole workflow needs to be redesigned and integrated into one unifying system of working. And then we're looking at where the AI solutions fit in. And those will then hopefully provide some meaningful time, cost, and user experience benefit. The second aspect to that, of course, is all the data that forms the backbone of these AI models, and it's disseminated across a huge landscape. And startups which are hoping to use that clinical data are often stuck with siloed and unstructured content, which the NHS has collected, but is stuck in these sort of PDFs and systems that just don't talk to one another. So if we had an IT infrastructure that would work in the way that we wanted it to, we could not only transform clinicians' working lives, but we could also deliver high-powered AI tools that at the end of the day are really going to benefit the patient. So just conscious of time. So I'll leave it at that for that question. But again, happy to pick up on some of the other themes that I mentioned in the Q&A or afterward.
Do you can I ask you one more question?
Sure.
How do you, and I think you may have already touched on this, what does success look like? How do we manage and measure the effectiveness of these solutions?
Again, another great question. So success for me, again, in its broadest term, looks like high quality, efficient, and effective healthcare provided to every patient that walks through my door. And as a clinician, I have the tools to provide that high quality healthcare, resulting in optimal patient outcomes. So if I have more time to speak to the patient, to deliver healthcare, and by that I mean explaining treatments, things that AI will never really be able to do, the human touch. I have the time and space to do that, and I have tools in place to support me to deliver optimal healthcare in all the other areas. That's what success looks like to me. And what was the second part of your question, Jose?
How do we measure and manage that? And I guess that's a bit bit trickier to answer in the abstract, is it? How do you measure and manage the effectiveness of a tool? I think I'm always wondering if we're talking about two different things here. There's the clinical decision support.
Yeah.
That, well, a lot of the focus is we're going to be talking about this a bit later, but there's also a lot, and I think this is almost what you're kind of inferring in your first answer, is help managing the administrative burden.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
is that something that's missing that you're looking for?
I think there are some great startups that are addressing this space. So it's not necessarily that it's missing. I think there are UK startups, Tortoise to name one, is actively addressing a number of these problems. But it's that it feels like we're reacting to a problem as opposed to redesigning the space. And I know that's a big ask, and it's not that a startup should answer that. It's us as a community, as an industry, need to look at that with a more bird's eye sort of view, which is outside of the silo of what a product can deliver. It's great, some of the solutions, innovative solutions that are coming across, but I want us to just have a little bit more of a bird's eye lens on it, because sometimes AI, as we know, takes time to implement. And by the time the solution's been offered, often years or lag of detriment to patient care has already happened. So that's in relation to that. But coming back to measuring and managing the effectiveness of AI solutions, I think leveraging the principles of the NHS clinical governance framework is really valuable here to effectively manage and measure exactly what we're doing. And I think this will be key to the adoption. So if we can have really stringent clinical governance framework around a solution in place, then that will definitely give clinicians confidence in not just implementing a solution, but how to ensure that it's optimal in that space. So what do I mean by the NHS clinical governance framework? For those of you who may not know, generally that's 7 pillars that the NHS has laid out, and you use them to ensure that the highest quality patient care is being delivered. So what are those 7 pillars? Essentially education and training. So in relation to AI, that would be looking at how a tool is educated into the users that will be using it, not just the users, but also the people delivering care. Clinical audit, so that would be a way to measure the metrics around it, and that will definitely be, again, a tool to manage, to measure effectiveness. Clinical effectiveness, so evidence-based studies and making sure those are in place. Staff management is another pillar. So again, having clear roles and responsibilities in relation to who is managing upkeep of that AI tool or software updates, etc. Transparency and patient and public involvement. So that is really key. A really stringent risk management process, and very key is information management. So data quality assurance, data security, data sharing, all of those issues as well. So hopefully that answers that part of your question.
Thank you. Okay, now we're gonna bring you back. Don't leave. We're gonna slide you off the screen. We're bringing you back for the Q&A, and we're bringing on Andrew. Thank you so much for coming, Andrew.
Thank
I had
you.
a great time talking to you last week, and I wanted you, first of all, actually, before we dive into it, can you give us a quick summary of what? And I know you wear lots of different hats, and a quick summary of who you are and what you do.
Yeah, from the United States. College, I majored in physics genetics, so a lot of math background. I've also done a lot of work in wet bench molecular biology labs. After that, I did MD, PhD training at Mayo Clinic. With critical care, the work was clinical informatics, so computational study of informational systems around healthcare. I worked with them through the whole program and a postdoc, so something like a decade with them. So also an expert in medical device technology, clinical trials. I went on to work in the medical device startup world. The pandemic hit, went back and did anesthesiology training. Now I've mostly been working with International Caregivers Association. They're the largest dementia-focused care organization in the world. And I've continued working with several other startup companies, Mental Health AI, the largest company building an AI platform to interface with electronic medical record systems, and more or less what I do.
Now I'm going to ask a question, and I'm directing it this to you, Andrew, but I also would like some comments from you, Edward, because I know you've had some experience with this, and we've talked about clinical workflows. And I wonder if you could tell, and might be the low-hanging fruit. This is my language, which is administrative support. And can you talk to us, Andrew, about kind of the opportunities that you see, how these AI solutions can help clinicians by kind of taking on some of this burden?
Yeah, so this I think is an important subject. It's not necessarily the hottest subject or the sexiest subject out there, but the conversation you just had, questions about where you would implement AI, how you would implement AI. This is probably similar to other businesses and other business models, you probably would begin with the administrative elements of healthcare. I don't think something like doing like a large trauma case in an operating room, this is not really a good environment to try to test the functionality of an AI system. And it's more than just saying it's safe to do this with office or paperwork. In fact, a huge amount of physician time, nursing time, all hospital staff, a huge amount of their time is wasted on administrative matters. That example, for example, of just manually typing out information from a, who knows, faxed PDF or wherever it came from. A machine can do that. It's absurd in 2024 we have a human doing that. So really, there's probably a lot of meaning in automating those kinds of tasks first. And it will be easier to see how they perform. It's a little bit weird to say this, but when people leave the clinic, leave the hospital, lost to follow-up, we don't know always what happened to them. So it can be hard to say, did technology improve patient care, patient outcomes? This can be a very difficult question, but asking, did you improve amount of minutes spent per administrative task per day, this is more answerable.
I went to the doctor on Monday actually, and I'm all right. And the but one thing noticed is she spent most of the time staring at her screen, typing things, and she only spent about 2 minutes looking at me. And and I don't know, Edward, have you had a lot of like in terms of when you look at I know you've just been to London Tech Week, and I you know you were talking to some new startups there. Do you see a lot of opportunities for these kind of technology that addressing administrative burden that's not currently been? And I
Well,
know I casually mentioned Tortoise AI, and I think they're here.
yeah, yeah, right. I was at London Tech Week last week, and according to my observation, almost every second project is somehow related to AI. But AI is really combined with healthcare domain because first is regulatory perspective, and it's been scary, and it's especially working with sensitive data. So I agree with Andrew and his point about simplify the work of some administrative work, which can be improved by AI as well. Also, we had a case working on the project when AI been used to simplify like doctors' notes. Like you can use to summarize notes and to get this main information regarding symptoms, regarding medicine, and get rid of unnecessary information from clinical notes during video call or video conference.
I've got another question. I'd like both of you guys to answer. So I'm warning, and I'm gonna ask Andrew first. I'm gonna ask you. And people always say, people always talk about red flags, right? So when it comes to like you're thinking of buying a new solution or integrating it, what I would like to ask, instead of saying what kind of advice would you give, Andrew, to an organization thinking of buying or acquiring a new solution? What kind of green flags? What kind of things they should be looking for? And when they're making that decision, before they're making the commit decision.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at a company from a strategic sense, physicians don't want to hear this. Physicians are good at medicine. They are not good business people. They are not good at running companies. Maybe they pick up an MBA on the side and they're a little bit better, but I'm not sure that the CEO of a company should necessarily be a physician. I get a little nervous when I hear physicians saying, it should all be physician-led, this and that. I'll say the opposite, though. I get extremely uncomfortable when I talk to one of these hardcore software engineering AI ML companies, and they tell me they have 0 physicians, 0 scientists. It's completely programmer driven. And it's like, what? I'm like, how are you building a healthcare system? It's like, not to, again, be too offensive, but you don't know anything about what healthcare is. And so that's a first step for me, is just looking at who is leadership. I mean, you can always, like any company, go back and trace who are early funders, who are late in funders, investors, advisors, who's on the board. So I tend to look at all those traditional things first, like any other company. A lot of these are startup companies. I guess I should say it's different if a megalithic company is coming in, but that's probably not the case here.
Edward, what kind of green flags would you recommend? Now, I know you're going to have a different point of view, but if someone's looking at a new software vendor, what kinds of green flags, what kind of positive signs should they be looking out for that gives them more confidence?
Well, I could not agree with Andrew. It's necessary to have at least scientists on board and to have enough expertise in that domain, especially when talking about quite regulatory and sensitive domain like healthcare. But from technical perspective, I would ask about how this tool or solution is used. Do you have any feedbacks and how it's supported and maintained? Well.
All right, well, I'll tell you what, guys. Edward, you stay. We're going to slide Andrew off. Thank you so much, Andrew. Don't go away.
Yeah.
Bringing you back.
Got it.
We're just sending you off to the Twilight Zone. Now we're going to bring on Anna. Hello, Anna. Thank you so much for coming. And we've had you on before. And I think we actually, I got the idea for this event talking to you, I think about 1 or 2 months ago. I don't know if you remember that.
Yep.
And I know we've had you on before, and a lot of the people in the audience already know, I've already heard, but we've got a lot of people who are new. So I'm wondering if you could spend about 1 or 2 minutes introducing yourself and what you do.
Thank you, Awesome. Sure. So I am Anna Shahinyan, CEO at FiBrain. My background is physics, and I have big experience in AI, maths, and physics, of course, and also in engineering. Basically, at FiBrain, we build now the FiBrain, which is a data science platform that helps companies to better understand their data and build robust AI solutions based on mostly we help with images, medical images. So the experience, how we have designed FiBrain, taking into account our experience and also the obstacles that we have faced before that.
Thank you. Well, so you help a lot of organizations develop their models. And I know when you're training, and I know clinicians don't develop AI models, but and I was thinking, do you have any suggestions about the issues that they're facing and how it affects the delivery of the models? And I know this might be a communication issue sometimes between the people who are using the tools and the people who are developing them. But I wonder if you could talk about that a little bit. Does that make sense?
Definitely, that is one of the typical issues that Now we don't see a lot of AI in the healthcare, even though AI in our life, it exists in our life, but we don't see it in the healthcare system mostly. That is an amazing question. So would like to mention that the one aspect is that resource management, starting from the resource management, and the focus is the first pillar to have a successful solution for the healthcare, AI solution for the healthcare. And we spent a lot of time while working with our customers on the correct resource management and reduce the possible obstacles before that. Let me explain in more details. So while designing AI solutions, we as engineers need to clearly understand that technology, including AI, shouldn't disrupt existing workflows. Ideally, it should seamlessly integrate into clinicians' routine, provide insights without adding extra steps and workload. That is very important to understand, whether it shouldn't add any type of workload on a healthcare system. AI by itself is considered like a black box, which adds extra complexity on the development first. And the next complexity is to deliver the black box, the AI, to clinicians. And the trust in the decision is another pillar that should be considered while designing the product for the healthcare system. So first it goes to correctly designing the product, understanding the workflow for that. The next aspect we have also talked about it, is the goes to data development. So as mentioned, AI models are data-driven, and the quality of the data that they are trained on significantly impact their performance. And integrating data from these different healthcare systems and ensuring its accuracy is challenging for even big companies. And this again goes to the trust part. The next part, of course, that the companies should consider and put a lot of effort is the training programs for the clinicians, for the users, let's say. But the next point goes, of course, the budget, because because the final AI solutions typically are expensive, and for small clinics, they are not affordable. That's why it is not very well adopted currently in the system.
When you talk about trust,
yeah,
and black boxes, and I know at the beginning, Angela was talking about the 7 pillars of clinical governance. How are you managing that communication to build that trust between the people building the black box and the people who are going to be using it? How do you build that trust?
Well, so first of all, let's go a little bit forward, backward, not forward. The idea is that it is very important to build the solution. I mean, the AI solution development starting from the data gathering, data collection. And for that, we provide extensive analytical tools that helps data scientists, AI engineers understand the data. That is very important. Data processing in a medical healthcare is expensive. It consumes a lot of effort, both from data science part, from medical experts who are involved in the process, because without medical experts, we cannot deliver any solution to the healthcare system, let's say. Let's be honest on that. And without extra tools that are really challenging to find those images which bring information to the AI solution and don't produce noise, but instead and also don't replicate already existing information. The final solution, the performance will be very low and will not have enough trust on that. And also having a good understanding on how good is our data is yet another method to understand the big information that we have. Since we're talking about the images, because, for example, in our case, we work with images, it is yet another challenging. That's why we provide extensive tools. We provide meta information about the data that the model is trained on. Another aspect goes to understanding the missing cases, because if in the data set we don't have enough information, or some cases are missing in our data set, it means that our AI solution will not recognize it at all during the deployment. And that is how also we help to understand how the data is good enough. And of course, we need to have, we provide ML pipeline that is professional designed, and it reduces the development efforts for the companies. And also, it is very important that to have a tools that can help you to make a decision, strategic decisions. Because as said, AI is a black box, but it is not black box at all. It is like a lot of data, but we need to find the meaningful information, extract meaningful information. And based on that meaningful information, we can have a control, because if we don't have a control on something, it means that, and it means that we don't manage it. It means that the system, the process manages us, which brings to budget overruns, etc., etc. And also, all the mention points helps companies to reduce the time to market. Having clear understanding on the budget, having clear understanding or expected performance, and also having clear plan.
Okay. Now, by the way, everybody, if you've got any questions, don't wait for the Q&A to start. Put them in the chat. Anna, thank you so much for that. I'm going to put you in the twilight zone for a little bit, but don't hang up. We're bringing you back for the Q&A. And we're bringing Tanya, our last speaker. You got the hardest job going last, Tanya. I hope you're up to it. I know you're up to it.
Absolutely. Nice to be here, Jose, again.
Thank you. I think that you've been in one of our events before. I think you were in Spain. You're not in Spain anymore,
That's
right?
exactly.
I think that photo there
Yes.
is taken. Yeah.
Yes. Now I'm back in the Netherlands.
And I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about what you do. I know some people already know, but you've been on one of our. We had you on, I think,
Absolutely.
3 or 4 months ago.
Yeah, so I've been working as a lawyer now for over a decade. Out of which, for the last 6 years, I've been advising companies on privacy and data protection laws. And now, with the advent of AI and data really being the essence of AI, it is my organic transition into the world of AI, where I've been advising companies in the health tech field. And I have the privilege, and they're using AI in their software to navigate this path with them. So that's what I do every day. Navigate the messy regulations of data protection and AI, and try to make sure that we do this all ethically, responsibly, while respecting the rights of patients and of privacy.
We actually had a health tech and compliance event last year, and Edward spoke about balancing. And I'm going to bring on Edward in a minute to answer some questions about that. But balancing agile delivery and compliance. And I remember I've heard somebody on one of my LinkedIn connections would say, trying to balance agile delivery and meeting compliance is like trying to have your cake and eat it too. But I'm wondering, I know Edwards might have something to say about that. He wouldn't necessarily say that you can do it. But what I want to ask you, Tanya, is what are the biggest mistakes you're seeing? Now I know you don't want to like spill the tea on some of the people you're working with. What do you see? Can you tell us what are some of the biggest mistakes people are making from a regulatory perspective when they're building these solutions and developing these solutions? And I know there's some things you can't talk about, but are you at liberty to say to deliver a cautionary tale?
There are many, yeah. Because we're all figuring this out together. This is new for everyone. The laws are just evolving. It's a complex landscape. We're learning by doing and from our errors. So that is fine. But what I feel like can be improved upon is also what Anna touched upon, is the problem of resources. Like people don't have enough, like organizations, especially early on in the decision-making process. The process of assessing whether an AI system meets your safety, quality, performance standards, and complies with all applicable legal requirements can be quite lengthy, and not involving the right people at the right time only stretches the project timelines and affects the quality of the implementation. So that is something that I've been noticing a lot, that projects get delayed. They're not really done with the quality that they could have been implemented had the right people been brought in at an earlier stage. And the worst situation is when you end up doing something without looking at the potential risks at all. And this is all because of lack of resources, which leads to a lack of knowledge in the organization. Most organizations are not confident that their
You could repeat that, Tanya. I think we lost you there.
complete. Maybe it's helpful if I give me a minute. Let me switch. Is this better now?
I can hear you better
Let's
now.
hope it
Thank you.
is. Okay, awesome. No, so I was saying, according to me, I mean, as we're all figuring this out together, but we need to involve the right people. So the experts who are actually looking at it from a legal standpoint, people who are looking at it from an ethics standpoint, need to have a seat on the table. Privacy engineers who can help in setting up ways to use data, which is, we all know, is a big problem thanks to the regulations. We're still figuring it out. But if you involve privacy engineers in time, maybe we can figure out what would be a good way to anonymize the data, use differential privacy. There are a lot of technologies which can be put in use so that we can maximize the utility that comes out of the data. We can put in place sufficient technical measures to ensure the security of the data. So we can do a lot of things provided we involve the right people at the right time. But I feel because of economics or just like not having the awareness, we're not involving the right stakeholders. And it's quite a simple issue, and it can save us a lot of trouble if we just get the right people on the table. So that is what I think has been going wrong.
You're making a reference there about the technology. Are you making references to synthetic data to anonymize?
Yes, also, like for example, we could, yes, absolutely, use synthetic data. That is a solution.
I know you had touched on that, Edward, last year, didn't you? About using, this is for tabular data, wouldn't it? About using, and we actually had Redl AI on an event a couple of months ago. And I know when I made that comment at the beginning, Edward, I wonder if you can comment. When I said, I was passing on what someone else said, balancing agile delivery and compliance at the same time is like having your cake and eating it too. Does that make sense? Because I know when we had you on last year, you outlined a process for us where you can balance those two things if you've got the domain expertise, domain knowledge communicated in advance to the software engineering team.
Well, it is interesting topic, and Andrew already brought this topic, and Anna also discussed this. It's a domain and expertise problem. It would be untrue to say that all of our engineers in Radency well known about healthcare or healthcare specialists, but I can assure us that all of our engineers are very well in software development. Well, when we start working in such projects, we have a training, and Anna mentioned training for medical workers for get familiar with AI. The same, it's important to have a training for compliance, and for example, starting project to build a project HIPAA compliant, we had to know security and privacy law transform into specific tasks and specific steps to implement. So in general, yeah, it's impossible to avoid knowledge in specific domain when you work with healthcare, even if you're a technician.
I'll ask one more question for you, Tanya.
Hmm?
I know, and this we're gonna have to go soon to the Q&A. A lot of organizations, they won't engage with compliance. They'll fake it till you make it, and they will hit a roadblock and they have to do over. And how? What advice would you give to them? To people who are to almost even control their marketing costs, because you don't want to try to build out your marketing program for a new product without engaging in compliance. How do
That's
you communicate?
absolutely. Yeah, no, so my standard reply and my mission in life is really privacy and safety by design and default. So I cannot, like, as I said before, please get the right stakeholders, whether that's your patients, it's your healthcare practitioners, and it's your legal people, it's your ethics people on the same table at the beginning of a project. Let it be the ideation stage. It's fine. We can all go through the problems together so that we don't have to hit roadblocks at a more advanced stage and then the project gets canceled out. So, working with healthcare professionals to identify specific problems or inefficiencies right at the beginning, you working because as Edward just said, like the software engineers don't have the knowledge that is needed to see the entire picture, but the people who do have the knowledge, get them involved in the beginning so we can be more effective in the way we are building things. And from my perspective, include the lawyers, the regulatory people, the compliance, the patient safety, or quality management people, again, early on. They don't have to participate very vocally in each meeting, but as long as they're aware of what's happening, there's going to be something, they'll know when to spot the red flags, and they'll do that in time. So make sure that everybody is around the table. It's really as simple as that. And you get the right people to do the job.
You know, I just realized, I just looked at the questions in the Q&A. I'm like, how are we going to answer all these questions in the time we have left? So keep the questions coming. We'll get you an answer. If we could bring on all the other, if we could bring everyone out of the Twilight Zone, and I just actually looked at the questions now, quite a few. Normally I ask a question, I'll have everyone have a kick of the ball, but we're gonna have to just do one question per speaker. Here's one question I want to ask you, Edward, very quickly. Can't AI also be used to fill the gaps between unconnected technologies? We could say yes.
What do you mean by unconnected technologies?
I think actually when I say I think this is one of the operability question. I'm guessing, Edward, this is the operability question where you've got systems where the
To be honest, Jose, it's sometimes difficult for people to find a way how to find a way for these unconnected technologies because there are a lot of formats, types, and APIs. But yeah, AI can help you unify everything to one format, one system, and simplify your job, I think.
Thank you. Let's see. Gen I offers a possibility to deal with unstructured heterogeneous data. That's not a question. Okay, sorry, I'm just going through. How do we ensure the safe okay, this one's for Ekanjali. How do you ensure the safe implementation of AI in healthcare, guarantee patient data is not misused, and that information given is accurate? If anyone has any good documentation on this, please reply to this comment.
So I think this comes back to Tanya's point actually, which is in the embryonic stages of that development of AI software. If we can incorporate that into its design, we're going to save ourselves a hell of a lot of heartbreak. So I think that's key. So having an appreciation of what those regulatory guidelines are, what the privacy constraints are, or the guidance is, and integrating and weaving that into the design, that's key, certainly from what Tanya was talking to.
Now here's a question. Are there examples of how to provide an estimated ROI of AI adoption into real clinical settings? I don't know if we've got that kind of expertise on the panel. And Andrew, does that question, is that fall within your bailiwick, or is that not really? You're on mute, by the way, Andrew.
Thank you. Yeah, so I've done this twice at Mayo Clinic, and I've done it with 3 startup companies. I mean, dare I say, a lot of this gets somewhat fabricated, especially at startup companies, because a lot of them are heavily dependent on private equity, venture capital, angel investors, and they make claims. And what is the grounding for those claims? It's not academic references, it's their word. And a lot of money is transacted based on that. And return, people get equity in these companies. If the companies pan out, that equity could be worth a fortune. If it doesn't, they could be worth nothing. And so it is a murky world. At a place like Mayo Clinic, they were much slower in the process, much more methodical. They had compliance involved, they had legal involved, they had finance involved, they had everybody involved, and they were not using venture capital money, so they didn't have the same pressures to produce that kind of information either.
I have another question here. Is not AI the perfect way to ensure data privacy? You can constantly monitor ports on apps 24/7 and be alarmed once irregularities occur. Tanya, have you heard anything about that?
No, but I don't know if the goal is to constantly monitor things. Like, I don't know if that's the goal of privacy, to constantly monitor. I mean, AI could certainly be a tool to manage consent, for example. Yeah, but I don't know. I would need to know more about what this person meant by.
I think it also could mean maybe anonymize the data if you're moving it around.
Yeah, yeah.
And I know you could do that with tabular data. I'm not too sure. I know it's a bit different. Let's see. I have more questions here.
Also, I would like to
go ahead,
add
Edward.
to this question. Yeah, I've been meeting a couple of startups in London, and they have like a quite a good infrastructure to deploy on premise your own model. So you shouldn't worry about leaking your privacy data.
Yeah. For the privacy data, there is another methodology that we offer. It is when the data is left on the hospital side and the models are trained remotely without moving the data outside of the hospital or the clinic. So that's another way to answer how it is better to also involve medical experts in the R&D processes and also invest during the development in the training of the final AI solution.
We just had a question just come in. Scary question. Oh. What would be some scary uses of AI in healthcare that are concerning for them? Displacements of ACPs, removal of the human touch. I don't know if we want to end on a scary Terminator style question. And did you?
It's real. It's a real thing. People are talking about it in the surgery. I mean, believe me, no surgeon, no anesthesiologist wants this, but people are talking about it, and it is frightening.
I think
Can
you
I
mentioned. Yeah, go ahead.
can I
Go ahead.
just
Yeah.
clarify here though? And I'd like to leave it on a bit of a positive note. That a machine cannot replace a human. It can do lots of things that a human can't do. And we need to appreciate what those things are and design systems to incorporate all those beautiful things that AI and machine learning can do. But ultimately, when you are unwell and you want to see a healthcare provider, the physical touch and the care, empathy, all those human factors that are actually really important to you in learning your diagnosis, explaining your diagnosis, down to how that's going to affect your family and all the social care factors. That is the backbone of really high value healthcare. And I think that cannot be replaced.
By the way, if everyone gets an email from me in the future, you know I wrote it. You know it was written by AI because no AI would make the typos that I make. I
Yeah, so
can't be
human
faked. And I'm going to wrap things up. We're going to do another event next month on health tech software success, transparency, and continuous delivery. If anybody wants to be featured on one of our webinars, we don't get money from people or do anything like that. But if you want to collaborate with us on a webinar, get in touch with me. If you're thinking of building a software project in health technology and you have some questions, tap me on the shoulder on LinkedIn. If I don't know the answer, I'll put you in touch with the person who does. We're ready to. We're also, if you're building something in healthcare, you're scaling up your software engineering, tap me on the shoulder. Let's have a chat. And we're gonna wrap things up now. I want to thank everybody for your time. We're going to do another event next July. Enjoy the Euros if you're into football. I'm hoping Spain and England face off in the semifinal. It'll really divide my whole family if that happens. Thank you much, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. And thank you to Event 7 and Stream for doing the technical side of this. Makes my job easy. I don't have to touch the keyboard and the mouse. And if you want to know more about that side, tap me on the shoulder. I can help you with that as well. Take care, everybody. And you have a great day. Now we're kicking you all out. Don't take it personally. And boop, boop.